there YouTube, this is Vargas XX78 with another Tales from the Vargas Vault. This time around I wanted to talk about yet another one of my favorite series. This is actually a series that got me hooked into Sony. I've always been, and I always will be, a Nintendo man. I've collected video games and played video games for Nintendo since the NES, the Super Nintendo, the N64, the GameCube, the Wii, the Wii U, and whatever other console they're going to do. So I've always been a Nintendo fanboy. But I used to have this friend and neighbor, used to have because he lives in a different part than me now, but that we always talked about video games. It was fun to talk about video games with him, but he was always more independent. He would always talk about other stuff. Mostly the PlayStation. He would always tell me that the PlayStation also has some good games and that I should give it a chance. But, you know, I wasn't really interested. I was, again, 100% loyal to Nintendo. And then when the PlayStation 2 came about, he was like, "Oh, you gotta play the PlayStation 2. It has really cool games that you gotta check it out. You gotta check it out." And I'm like, I have the GameCube. I like the GameCube. I'm not interested in getting anything from Sony. Then one day he was like, "Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to get you a PlayStation 2. Dirt cheap. I'm going to get you a PlayStation 2, and I'm going to give you a couple of games. And if you don't like them, fine, whatever, you can do with what you want, but I can guarantee that if you, after playing those games, you're going to get hooked, and you're going to want to play the rest of the series." And I'm like, fine, okay, whatever. So he got me a PlayStation 2, the same PlayStation 2 I still have. And for like $100 back when it was more expensive, and he gave me 2 games, and one of the games, honestly, it could have been magical on a Nintendo console, but the fact that it wasn't, and it was so much fun and so addicting, it honestly did make me a fan of Sony. I mean, Nintendo's always going to be my main console and company, but Sony honestly does have some good games under the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and PlayStation 3. They have nothing on the PlayStation 4 or Vita, but I will admit that because of that game, I got hooked. The other game was Eco. That is a beautiful game, and it's a topic for another Vault video. But the game that got me hooked on Sony, that showed me the potential that a studio on the PlayStation can have, and it's one of my favorite games on the Sony platform, and that's Ratchet Clank. Ratchet Clank is a beautiful game. Graphically, it's amazing. You can upgrade. It has all these crazy weapons, and you can upgrade them and make them even more devastating. And, you know, you go around collecting bolts, and whenever you smash a crate or destroy a bad guy, it's an explosion of little bolts, and the little sound that they make when you're collecting them is addicting. It's addicting, the way that, you know, you can get hooked on getting everything, so you can upgrade the weapons and make the weapons these weapons of mass destruction, like the Rhino on this one. It was such a fun game, and it would have felt at home on a Nintendo console, but the fact that it was on Sony, and it was exclusively for Sony, and it was bright and colorful, honestly made me a fan of Sony consoles. And that's the game that started. It's the original copy. I keep it with the little bag, so it doesn't get any dust or anything. But it was such a fun game. The comedy in this game is great. The gadgets, the weapons, the interaction between Clank and Ratchet. Fun. It definitely, I wanted more of this. And thankfully, there is more. Because the other game that came out is Ratchet Clank Going Commando. It upped the ante on Ratchet Clank 1. It became a little bit more serious, because they gave Ratchet this little suit, which is nothing compared to that. But Sony and Insomniac were experimenting. Same thing with Sony and Naughty Dog with their Jak and Daxter series. You play Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, and then you play Jak 2. It's almost like 2 totally different games, but They kind of did the same thing with this one. It got a little more mature, but that didn't take away from the fun. It was still freaking amazing. The weapons, again, the bolt collecting, the humor, the graphics, everything was just perfect. I love the Ratchet and Clank series. And it's actually a series that I miss nowadays because, in Sony platforms anyway, because everything now is hyper realistic. Everything now is dark. Nothing's colorful like this. Nothing's colorful like this, and that's why I love the Ratchet and Clank series. But going commando, the thing on the back, kicking ass one planet at a time, was freaking sweet. I love this one. Great series. And they follow that up with Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. Another stellar entry. This one's a little more dusty. Another stellar entry. The weapons just got more insane. Everything was pushed up even more. It's just fun. I can't explain unless you play how fun it is to go around blasting, guns a-blazing, hearing that beautiful sound of volts, and then upgrading your weapons and making even more destruction. So much fun, so much fun. And this one, I can't remember for the life of me, and I'm sorry, but my memory's not as good as it used to be. I can't remember in which one of these Dr. Nefarious showcased. Can't remember if it was this one or this one. But in one of these two games, they introduced an amazing villain called Dr. Nefarious, who was the scientist that got fed up with organics, so because he thought machines and droids would be better. So he turned himself into a machine and wanted to turn everything else into a machine. But he's a threat, but he's also completely incompetent. And the voice actor that gives life to Dr. Nefarious is hilarious. By far, he's my favorite character in the Ratchet and Clank universe. He's just freaking funny as hell. So I can't remember for the life of me if he appeared on this one or in this one, but great. He was great. Then they did. There's a fourth game on the PlayStation 2. And they did a little experimenting on this. The formula was solid on these three Ratchet and Clank games. So they decided to take a slight detour and release a combat arena sort of game with Ratchet Deadlock. They got rid of the platforming. It was basically just all about the shooting, the weapons, and the upgrading. Because one of the good things about these is that they're platformers, and platformers is my favorite genre, that and puzzle games. This one had shooting and platforming elements. This one just had shooting. Ratchet wasn't a factor in this. He was stuck in a different part, and Clank was in a different part. Ratchet was the one competing in the arena games, and I honestly missed the platforming. The platforming is what I loved about the first three entries, besides the shooting and the bolts and everything. But this one is not a bad game. This is good. If you have a PlayStation 3, you can get these three games in HD. Again, I don't need that because I have the original ones. But if you don't have the original ones, or you can't get the original ones, that would be a good option to get the HD remix. But this one's not in that remix. You can't get Ratchet Deadlock in HD. So this one, if you want to check it out, you would have to track it down on the PlayStation 2 and own a PlayStation 2. Again, not the strongest entry of the series, but not that bad. Then, something I didn't think was possible, Sony did with the PSP. Honestly, the PSP, while it would never really compete with the Nintendo handhelds, that thing was a thing of beauty. I will admit, the screen was beautiful, and the fact that it played many versions of PlayStation 2 games was admirable, and it played well. The thing about Nintendo is that they always have innovation and play control, but in the technical aspects and both of the console and the games, the PSP was amazing. And something that I never thought they would be able to do is make a portable Ratchet and Clank, and they did with Size Matters. And the more surprising thing is, it worked. The visuals looked amazing. The gunplay was cool. The upgrades were awesome too. It was a fun game. The platforming elements were there. It blew my mind that they were able to pull this off on the PSP, and it's a fun game. I say that about all the games, but it was impressive. I will give Sony that. It was impressive to see that they were able to pull this off on the PSP. It just blew my mind. And they did it again with Secret Agent Clank. In this one, Ratchet is falsely accused of a crime. He's thrown in jail, so you don't have the run and gun. But Clank has to prove his innocence. So he has to, do these stealth missions. And Clank can't go, going around shooting people. He doesn't have that ability. He in this game, he's more stealth-wise. The humor's still there. The humor's still fun. The voice actor that gives life to Clank is funny as hell. Captain Quark is there too. Captain Quark is a character in the Ratchet and Clank universe that bugs me sometimes. The best description I can give you, if you watch Futurama, he's kind of like a Zap Brannigan sort of guy. He thinks he's all heroic and everything, but he's so useless. And Captain Quark is this big hero of the galaxy, but he's a lie. He has nothing. He doesn't have a heroic bone in his whole body. The only reason he's popular is because Ratchet and Clank do their part, and then he takes the glory. But Captain Quark also makes an appearance in this. Not a fan of Captain Quark. More a fan of Ratchet, Clank, and Dr. Nefarious. But good game. Definitely a fun game. I would recommend that. Then, when PlayStation announced that they were going to make the jump to PlayStation 3, I was a little worried about Ratchet and Clank, because Insomniac, instead of announcing a new Ratchet and Clank game, they announced Resistance, which was a first-person shooter, a grayish, muddy first-person shooter, that didn't have... It had the weapons, which was something that, made me ended up buying the game. But it was not fun, it was not vibrant, it was fun to play, but it was not the kind of fun that has humor in it. And that's unfortunately something that is the trend now. With the exception of Nintendo, all the other companies are doing first-person shooters, grayish, brownish first-person shooters, and all the games are hyper-realistic. And yeah, even Naughty Dog, who did the Jak and Daxter series, did Uncharted, which is bright and colorful and platforming, but it has humans. It doesn't have any animal characters. So I was a little worried about Ratchet and Clank, because it seemed like Insomniac and Sony were going completely for the hyper-realistic thing with Resistance. But thankfully, they announced that they were going to release a game, and that game is Tools of Destruction. Ratchet and Clank Future Tools of Destruction. And, if you thought the PlayStation 2 things looked beautiful, this thing looks even better. It's visually stunning. The gameplay is still there. The weapons are still there. The bolts, thankfully, are still there. They kept the original sound. The platforming is still there. It's just everything is jacked up in HD, and it looks amazing. One of the things that I remember later on, after playing the first one, I think it was during the third one, Up Your Arsenal, they were saying, like, this is like a Pixar movie. That's a bold statement. As good as the PlayStation 2 versions were, they weren't Pixar quality. This one was. This one is freaking beautiful, and it's what I love about games. It's funny, it's vibrant, it's not hyper-realistic, it doesn't have humans, it goes into this animal universe with ginormous bad guys and boss battles and everything. It's the kind of series that I love. And if ever Sony goes down under and Insomniac is forced into releasing a game in any other platform, I would love that Nintendo adopt Ratchet and Clank, because I think it would work wonders in in Nintendo. But right now, Sony still has the rights to it, even though they haven't announced a Ratchet and Clank for the PlayStation 4, which worries me. Just like it worried me on the PlayStation 3, it worries me on the PlayStation 4. Because if they announce a Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation 4, it would be one of the only reasons I would pick up the damn thing. But this game, great, great, great. By the end of this game, a race of beings called the Sony abduct Clank. And the next mini chapter of the series was downloadable only. And that series, well, that one is, let me turn on the TV. There we go. Tools of Destruction. Tools of Destruction is the next entry in the Ratchet and Clank. It leaves off, it continues the cliffhanger where Clank is abducted by the Sony. So Ratchet has to go and look for him. The way to do that is that he has to find something to do with a pirate, and through that pirate, who had seemed to have communication with the Sony, he'll hopefully be able to track down Clank. So the thing about Clank is that you can use him as a mini jetpack. You can, reach long distances with Clank. He was your partner and one of the best sidekicks in video games, actually, and he would help you out with that. Unfortunately, Ratchet doesn't have Clank in this one. This is downloadable only. You can only get it if you download it, which is a bummer, honestly. It would be cool if they actually had a physical release of this, but you can only get it downloadable as far as I know. So if ever Sony, gets rid of that, that's it. You can't get it anymore. It'll become vaporware. But visually, it's still great to look at. Gameplay-wise, it's the same goodness that was offered in the first Tools of Destruction. It just continues the story in a really, really cool way. And I love the fact that I was able to download Tools of Destruction. After that, the story continues in Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time. Turns out that the Sony abducted Clank because they needed his help to fix this giant clock that regulated time. The same clock that Dr. Nefarious wants to get a hold of. So Dr. Nefarious makes a comeback. And I love Dr. Nefarious. Dr. Nefarious is cool. The thing about this one is that because of that, you have your running gun, you have your vaults, you have beautiful graphics, but in the Clank missions, you also have time manipulation, which was handled really, really cool. And it also has a very interesting story with Ratchet that has a chance to bring back the Lombaxes, which is the race that Ratchet is. But he ends up sacrificing that for the greater good. A great great game. I love this game. It's so cool. I freaking love. I love everything with Ratchet and Clank. And they continued that with Ratchet and Clank into the Nexus. They kind of got rid of the future thing. Haven't played much of this one, but this is the game that I bought that gave me the downloadable code for Tools of Destruction. So you can get this super cheap at Walmart. I bought mine for $16, and it has a complete game plus Tools of Destruction. Quest for Booty, I'm sorry. That's the name of the downloadable. Why am I calling it Tools of Destruction? Quest for Booty is the one that's downloadable only. You can get that one if you purchase this new. And it's also a good game. What little I've played of it is not as epic as this one. More because of the time manipulation. That's the reason this one was cooler. This one's still cool, but it lacks the time manipulation. So it's kind of missing things, but it's still great entry to the series. And I freaking love Ratchet and Clank again. And the last game that I own is Ratchet and Clank All for One. I picked this one up on a GameStop sale. You could pick up 3 games for... buy 2 games, get the third one free. And I saw this one, and I had to pick it up. This is a 4-player co-op. If you can get 4 people together, you can play cooperatively with Ratchet, Clank, Captain Quark, and the always funny Dr. Nefarious. Graphically, it does take a hit. It doesn't look as beautiful as the three previous games. Graphically, it does take a good chunk. Also, the weapons aren't as epic. This is basically just a party game, so you can get four people together that love Ratchet and Clank, and you know, co-op, play co-op to beat the level. So that makes it fun. If you can't get more than one person to play with you, this is fun. This is a good entry. The only game I'm missing is Ratchet and Clank Full Frontal Assault, which I haven't bought because it has nothing to do with platforming, nothing to do with the weapons or the vaults. It's I've read it online. It's more like a tower defense game, which is an interesting experiment, but it's not the reason why I love Ratchet and Clank. I'll pick it up to complete my collection because I think I pretty much owned every single Ratchet and Clank game. Even Quest for Booty, which is the only downloadable game that there is, because it doesn't have, again, a physical copy. So if I ever get Full Frontal Assault, I'll have all the Ratchet and Clank games. So yeah. But an amazing series. Like I said, it's the only game. Well, it's one of many, but it's the only game that I can say that competes with anything Nintendo has. Nintendo is a master at developing fun gameplay games. They focus more on fun, and Ratchet and Clank is the only Sony series that does that. It makes changes to the formula visually. It makes improvements to the gameplay, but it keeps the fun parts about it. It keeps the talking animals aspect. It keeps the humor. Ratchet and Clank is freaking hilarious. It keeps the fantasy world. It's not hyper realistic. It looks like a fantasy world because everything looks not real. It's a fun series, and honestly, I'm worried about the future of Ratchet and Clank because Sony hasn't mentioned it for the PlayStation 4. I think it's the kind of game that it needs to start getting people interested in the PlayStation 4 because there are very few games on the PlayStation 4 that I would merit, me buying the console. Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy 15, Batman Arkham Knight, and that's it. No, it's not. I have no interest right now to purchase a PlayStation 4 just because of those games. They're struggling and they need to do something. And I think that if they release a Ratchet and Clank game, at least they would have one fan purchasing the console because they need to do something. I'm not. I am a Nintendo fanboy, but honestly, realistically, Sony just doesn't have anything out on the PlayStation 4 that isn't a remastering. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line they do give a Ratchet and Clank announcement, but it's just to announce that they're going to re-release the three games on a remastered edition. Because they announced that they're going to do that with the Uncharted games. And that sucks. I mean, come on. You should be working on Uncharted. Well, I think it would be Uncharted 5 because there's an Uncharted game on the PlayStation Vita. But make something new. That's what the console needs. It needs something new. But yeah, that's Sony's decision. Not gonna argue with that. But it is weird to see them make these weird decisions that are not helping them at all. And I am worried for the Ratchet and Clank series. I honestly am because it was such a good series, and they haven't announced anything for Ratchet and Clank. So I'm hoping if a person can dream that somewhere down the line Nintendo will be like, you know what, we're gonna hire Insomniac, we're gonna buy the rights to Ratchet and Clank, bring them over. It would actually be pretty fun to see Ratchet and Clank in the Wii U version. They had an open poll that you can vote for. It's gonna be hard because Sony owns the rights, but it would be cool to see him in Smash Brothers for the Wii U. I voted for Bayonetta, but I should have voted. I didn't think it would be possible. That's why I didn't do it. But Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I should have voted for Ratchet and Clank. That would have worked. That would have worked awesomely. I wonder if I'll have to check if that vote is still open. But I voted for Bayonetta. Bayonetta on Smash Brothers would have been cool, but I went on another tangent and babbled about other stuff. But yeah, if you have a chance to play Ratchet and Clank, definitely give it a chance. These games, this didn't cost me $10. It cost me, with that sale, it cost me like $5. If you want to play with friends, get this one, but it's not the best one. I would definitely recommend you get this one at Walmart because you can get 2 games for the price of 1. This one to see how everything started, but this is the best one. I totally recommend Ratchet and Clank Future: A Crack in Time. This game is amazing. Unless you own a PSP, you can't really get that. And again, you can get for the PlayStation 3 these 3 games in HD. So if you're interested in looking into Ratchet and Clank, that would be an option. As far as the PSP games, I don't know if you can download them anymore, but if you can get a PSP and track them down, I'd recommend them too. But a fun series again. It made me a believer that Sony can push out some good games, and since then I've picked up PlayStation 1 games, PlayStation 2 games, and PlayStation 3 games. It's that good. It honestly is that good. But yeah, that's my Ratchet and Clank collection, only missing one, which I'll pick up eventually. So just wanted to share that with everyone out there that might not have heard of Ratchet and Clank. But thanks so much for watching this Tales episode. Until I see you all again, thanks so much for watching. This is Vargas XX78 thanking you and signing out.